and welcome. You are listening to At Home with Ifenu. Here, we'll talk about helping women know and understand their worth, find fulfillment in who they are, and in what they do. Every other week, we'll talk about your identity as a woman, discovering your unique purpose, intentionally raising the next generation, and your influence in homemaking. I am your host, Ifoma Nneka Omoni. Hello. Welcome to another inspiring time at home with Ifenu. How are you doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I just want to welcome you. It's going to be an awesome time today. Be you on your way to work, at home, in your shop, at the office, doing that shopping, wherever you are. I just want you to give us your listening ears, because today's show is going to be very, very educative and inspiring. And I don't like coming on the show always on my own, even though I know that, yes, even when it's only me speaking, God is with me. But I have someone very, very special to us. And I know that she's going to be used in a special way for today's topic, because today's topic is something that is needed in the season and the time we are in our world today. So I'd like us to welcome Mrs. Irene Bagwell to At Home with Ifeno podcast. You are very welcome, my sister.
Thank you so much, Ifeno. It's such an honor to be hanging out with you today. Very well done. Great work you're doing with the podcast. I'm so happy to be here today.
Thank you. We are honored and we are glad that you are here. So we'll just dive in. But before we dive into today's topic, I'd like to know what our coach, she's a coach, what does our coach do to relax? Knowing that you are a very busy person, running a school, which you will tell us about as the show goes on. What do you do to relax? What are the things you use to catch fun?
Okay, so maybe two things. I have a circle of friends that we hang out with and just have a good laugh.
Okay.
And then I watch movies.
Okay.
Yes.
So we are in the same boat in watching movies. That's interesting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I would like you to introduce yourself. I know you sent me your bio, your profile, but what do you want people to always remember when they hear your name? When they hear Irene Bagwell, what should our listeners always remember about you? Who is Irene Bagwell?
So very quickly, two things. Number one, Irene Bagwell is the co-founder of the North Condenary Day School. God has called my husband and I to ensure that children born in low-income families are getting quality education so that they can break out of poverty. And so that's the first thing I want people to think when they think. One thing I want people to think when they think. God has called me to raise a generation of girls that honor God with their bodies, that honor God with their purpose. And I'm able to do this through the vehicle of sex education, which is very needed today because of two very important conversations in the world today: sexual abuse and sexual identity. So God is calling me to raise a generation that is clear about who God designed for them to be, clear about the body that they came in, clear about what is right and wrong to do with their body, as well as they're being equipped to stop the enemy from facilitating sexual abuse, causing them traumas that could derail them on their journey. So those two things, ensuring education gets to the fore and ensuring girls get Bible-based sex education. Those two.
Wow. So is there any particular reason why you have your focus on girls? Is there any particular reason?
Divine instruction, 100%.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Today's topic is one that I got, interestingly, while I was sleeping up to a year ago or so. But I was actually sleeping, and I literally woke up to write it down, and it came like sleeping on duty.
Wow.
I started wondering. In fact, I checked myself. I went and checked my children, but that phrase, sleeping on duty, lingered. I even had to share it with my husband, what God was trying to tell me. Sometimes, even though we hear words, those words are heavy, and they have meaning even beyond the literal, meaning or how it is written. So for a while, I kept wondering and asking God and asking, what does this sleeping on duty mean, And I saw that there is a gap in parenting today. I might be wrong, but thank God you are here today. So you give us more of your experience in education with the school you are running, and also with the platform for teaching girls in particular about their bodies and sex. So our topic today is, are you sleeping on duty? It's a question for parents, and we are focusing on sex education and parenting. From your experience with dealing with parents and children, what will you say about parents sleeping on duty, particularly in sex education, from your experience?
Okay, so I want to start answering that question from the very foundation, because sex education, if I focus on sex education, I'm going to be dealing with the symptom. So let me start from a root cause, or a root factor that I have seen that is responsible for many failures that we see in parenting today. I think number one, many parents do not realize that being a parent is trust. This means that another human being is being given to you, and you're to literally lay the building blocks up for their life. That means that what you do with parenting determines the quality of life that human becomes. Many of us parents don't seem to recognize that our role is as important as that. So some parents have beautiful kids, and so they pay school fees because, it's the norm to send children to school. We're doing amazing birthday parties. Children are being so beautifully dressed, but the very critical things are not getting attention. Parents are not paying attention to themselves to be worthy examples. Parents are not thinking about milestone things they're supposed to have taught or exposed their children to. Like, parents don't know, okay, at age 3, what should my child have known? At age 5, what should my child have known? Because sex education is part of the things that we give to children on their journey. So it's not just in sex education that we are seeing that thing missing. We are seeing an overall lack of systemic parenting, lack of purposefulness in parenting. So we take the shallow part of parenting. Oh, my kids eat well. For parents who pay attention to diet, dress well, go to a good school, have the best school materials and all. But we're not working on their behavior. We're not working on the academics strategically. We're not working on nurturing their talent. We're not working on nurturing the skills. We're not building life skills in them. And essentially, sex education is one of the life skills that children should build. And so I think a big part for me is parents don't realize that another human being's life is standing on whatever we give to them. And so for me, that's how I want to approach this question.
With what you just said, the point you just made me, emphasize or strengthen my philosophy that it's not about how many children you have. You can have just one child, and that child, if you intentionally, because I saw what you were trying to say about being intentional in every aspect of that individual's life. So many of us are just parenting by chance or anyhow it goes.
Anyhow we go.
It's like there's no plan and there's no vision. There's no picture, a bigger picture, of that individual. And you use the word that it's about trust, which is really heavy. So we find out that it means that if that human being, that child who grows up to be an adult is not well parented, is going to affect that adult's life when that person is independent and out of your house, So it has ripple effects which can affect that person in all other areas of their lives, and even when they Wow.
Yes,
wow. So why do you think in sex education now, I noticed that it's like parents shy away, of educating their children, preparing their children? Why do you think that's an aspect where you see parents not really coming out to speak boldly about it to children? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have another experience from your end.
So you're very correct. Many parents shy away from providing sex education. And in so many cases, they don't want other people to provide it to their children. And it's because of two things. Number one, many parents did not get sex education. So for example, if your parents taught you how to make a goosey soup, it's easy. It becomes a part of you. You do it subconsciously. You cook it. You teach your daughter. You teach your maids. You teach your sons. You teach everyone because your parents gave it to you. Now your parents did not tell you. So if your parents didn't provide sex education for you, chances are that you did a lot of trial and error. You made a lot of mistakes, and many times those mistakes scarred you. Now you're scared of your child having those experiences, but you feel like if I go and talk now, will it arouse curiosity? So the first reason parents are not talking is because their own parents didn't give them sex education. So they don't have a blueprint. How do I even do this? I mean, growing up, many parents I have met got one-line sex education. Like my own mom told me there's nothing like safe period or no safe period. Anytime you have sex, you can get pregnant. That was the one-liner. And so I have to start asking people, what is waiting be safe period again? You get the idea? Waiting be safe period. Apparently, she had me in a supposed safe period. So I think that's all she could take away from the experience to pass on to me. And so you have other parents who say, if a boy touches you, you will get pregnant. And so if they mistakenly go to the market and their body touches a boy's body, they start. And then for some parents, it was if a boy sees your pant. So girls who like to climb tree have to wear shorts so a boy cannot see your pant. So eventually, they did not get sex education, so they can't give it. The second reason parents are not giving sex education is they don't know what it is. So some parents think that education is intercourse education. So when a parent asks me, so what's the right age to start sex education? I say 3 years old. They say, what? Tell my 3-year-old about sex. I say, no, sex education is not intercourse education. What is your doing with information about intercourse? Sex education is so because they don't know what it is. And when you don't know what something is, there's a popular saying that people always say no to what they don't understand. So because they don't understand it, they don't know what it is, they don't want to hear it. They don't. So some parents say, you want to spoil my child because it wasn't done for them. So they will not be able to appreciate how empowering it can be when it is done and when it is done right. So they don't know what it is. They don't know how to go about it and so on and so forth. So I can understand. Yes.
So from what you just said, you are trying to tell us that there's a difference between sex education and intercourse. And many people's mind is all about intercourse. Once they hear sex, they are thinking about the intercourse, not about knowing maybe the body parts and how to take care of yourself and things like that. Wow. Yes. Then another thing I noticed is, okay, we just finished saying that sometimes parents shy away. Now, when you have parents that are ready to maybe enlighten their children, we find out that we have more of the mothers or it looks like, is it the mother's duty to give the children of a home sex education? Does the father not have a role in sex education?
Incidentally, so it's the same thing I said before. I told you 3 one-liners that parents give their female children. And those female children are now mothers. So men did not get even one word sentence. They got nothing. So that is even worse. So their thinking is that, babe, you must have gotten something. You must find a way to handle this. I know fathers that, I just remember when my kids were younger. And each time I asked my daughter to go and do something, my husband would say, baby, has she reached? Has she reached? The whole idea is that now you get the blueprint. Now you get the idea. You're the one that knows this thing. So
you're in a better position
to do it. So it's not that they're abandoning it. I think that fathers don't know where to start from. All right? They don't know what to do. Don't forget that for boys, while growing up, sex was a hush-hush, something nasty that So it also leaves a picture in their mind. So when they look at their innocent babies, they can't imagine what part of hush-hush, what am I taking out of them to my son? You get the idea. So what I also know, that the more fathers embrace learning about it, the more empowering it is. Because one of the things I always tell parents is that there's a daddy role to sex education and there's a mother's role. So for instance, typically with girls, for example, the mother is talking about the hygiene, the body changes, self-worth. But the father's angle is in teaching the girls how to interpret what boys are saying. You get the sense?
Yes.
So after a while, when the girl's head is all high up there in the cloud thinking about boys, it's fathers that help make it make sense. So for example, Steve Harvey became a generation's father. Steve Harvey became a generation's father to girls because they could come into his show and say, he sent me this text, what does it mean? And he will break it down. Wow. That's why his show continued to be successful, because he literally closed a fatherhood gap in the life of girls. So one of my heartbeat would be to have more fathers showing up for my classes, watching my YouTube show, learning, and then going in there to do this.
So, yes. Coach Irene, you've really hit on something very, very critical now. And on this podcast, one of the things we are trying to do is not to continue with the norm. So what will you tell any father that stumbles on this podcast today? As in, what will you tell them? Okay, they might say, I don't know what to do, but I want to, I want to make a change. I want to make a difference. How do I go about it? Whether it's my son or my daughter, or like you use Steve Harvey now, the younger ones, so that they don't continue that cycle. How do you encourage fathers to get involved?
So first and foremost, I want them to chill. So if you're a father listening to me, I want you to just relax. It's not that hard, right? It's not that hard. And here's the thing. You have valid experience that you need to pass on to your children. The first thing I said was that parenting is actually a trust. Another human being's life is put in your hands, and what you do with it determines their own quality of life. There's a quote I always use in my classes. I say, parenting is packing your child's bag for their journey. At some point, you're going to leave them at the bus stop to go on their own. The question is the bag well packed? So I want fathers to calm down and know that if they quiet, if they don't participate, their child will miss out on a core contribution that only they can make. Then number 2, I hope that in the course of this show, I can talk about what the sex age by age sex education scope should be. And so maybe in sharing what that scope should be, it can help ease them out a little. So then the third thing I want to say is that for fathers listening to us on this podcast, sex education is not really about intercourse alone. It's all about preparing your child in whatever gender that they are, whether they're a boy or girl. It's preparing them to live life to the full. navigating the difficulties associated with that gender and coming out to the end. That's sex education.
Wow.
Let me take it again. Sex education is empowering a child to live life to the full of the purpose God designed for the agenda, and to learn how to navigate the different difficulties peculiar to the agenda. So, for example, boys need to eventually learn what it means when women start making advances at them. A girl pulls her dress, what should he do? A girl lies against him, what should he do? He starts to feel arousal while in the company of a girl, what should he do? Do you get the point? Sex education is saying boys have this kind of difficulties through life. I want to teach my son how to navigate it. I want to teach him how to stay out of trouble. I want to teach him how to be disciplined. I want to teach him how to become a man of honor, navigating the challenges that will come in front of him. The challenges of the boys telling him you're not hitting your wife, how you they control him. So you train him how to do those naysayers. Same thing with the girls. Girls, just like boys too, are prone to abuse. So there's a phase in their life that abuse is the thing. So you're preparing your son to be alert, to not get carried away by any auntie, to not let the auntie play with him and say, look at your wee and be laughing. So you're looking at the peculiarities, the challenges of living in that gender, and you're equipping them for it. That is sex education according to Irene Bagwell. That is the premise for which I do sex education, and that's the scope. So when you think about it that way, it's not that hard anymore. You realize, oh, it's not about orgasm. It's not. Do you get the idea?
Yes.
So when you're raising a girl, she gets to the point where there's pressure to share nudes so that the boy doesn't leave her. So you're equipping her with, why do you need him to need you? Why do you need him to act? And so you're helping her fix the inadequacies that makes her susceptible to some of those challenges, because you're preparing that child to navigate the challenges that comes with the gender that they came to this world in. So I want dads to look at it from that perspective, and it will help them calm down. And then in the course of the show, we'll be able to talk about this in clear terms.
Okay, what you said now brought some memories back to me. And well, my father didn't call it sex education, but there were some things that, he did. And I think he did them deliberately. So because of what you just said, so that no matter what any man dangles at me,
Yes.
He within what he could afford, he would take us out to the hotel, give us very beautiful meals, outside. Sometimes we travel with him, we lodge in hotels and everything like that. And he'll be telling us that and tell us how wonderful we are and everything. And I remember that many of those things he did made me know that there's nothing anybody wants to bring to me that will make me just fall like that. So
yes. So that was it.
I think I get what you're saying. Yes.
That is sex education.
I think it was intentional, unconsciously, because he made us know that he always said that there's nothing outside that anybody is going to give you that is better than what we give you. He made us know that even if it is food that you have not tasted, my father would say, come back home and tell me that thing that you saw outside that is making you want to do laundry. So I think I get what you are saying. So it's really preparing these children for their future. So you mentioned something about the scope of how parents can go about sex education. Could you, in summary, just give us some tips that could help parents? You said you start from 3 years. Will you just give us some tips on how parents can start this sex education so that they are not having strangers in their house and saying that their children are at home and they don't really know what's going on?
All right. So first and foremost, I would like to start by saying that sex education has to be age appropriate. Okay. That means there's still technicalities to it. It has to be age appropriate. That's number one. Number two, as a Christian family, you have to decide which one you're going for. If you're going to rely on the scientific sex education, where things like masturbation are not considered a terrible thing, where kids are taught about contraceptives very freely and condoms are talked about very liberally, even with the mindset that it will be impossible for the child to navigate without exploring. So you need to choose which one you're going for. And so before I start talking about my framework for sex education, I just like to say that I'm a Bible-based sex education coach. What that means is that I teach children that sin will not have dominion over them. That's the foundation. The world tells them that, there is no way you can control your body. You feel it, you do it. You feel it, you do it. I say, no, you feel it. You interrupt it in your thoughts. You remove yourself from the environment. You have no need to do it. So there's a part where I'm giving them the understanding that they can choose purity, but then I'm also showing them how the brain works. All right. So having said that, at the age of 3, children aged 3 to 5 have a layer of sex education they should experience. Number 1, the first thing you need to know at age 3 to 5 is children of that age are susceptible to sexual abuse. That means that, sorry, my dogs are interrupting. My apologies. So that means that within age 3 to 5, because your child is prone to abuse, you have to fortify them. And what are the ways? Number 1, let them know what body parts are called. So that if a child says, he touched my penis, it's not a coincidence. It cannot be a mistake. Do you understand? He knows what a penis, but if you say he touched my wee-wee, they don't know what wee-wee is. So precise knowledge of body parts. That's number 1. Number 2, your children have to be aware of public and private parts. Nobody touches them. They too don't touch anybody. See, sometimes sexual abuse is not the person touching the child. Sometimes some adult children touch them.
Wow.
Which is terrible. So you're teaching your child that you don't touch people's private parts. They don't touch your public. They don't touch your own private parts. Number 3, you teach them people and places. People and places means you start teaching your children all the possible places they can be abused. If they're going to the toilet in school, they should go with someone of the same gender as a caregiver. You start to teach them how to clean their butt by themselves so that they don't need anybody to clean it for them. You start to teach them etiquette around private places. When someone is in the toilet, you don't pick. You knock. If someone makes a sound, you go back. You want to use the toilet, you don't pull your shirt outside or your pants outside. You get into the toilet and you pull in. Private. Your body is private. You get that kind of thing.
Yes.
Why are we doing this? We're looking at prone to abuse, can speak up when it happens, is aware of the different places it can happen. So for example, if a pedophile is grooming a child, they start to give them sweets. They start to tell them, you're my favorite. So if you train your child that if someone starts to call you their favorite, that's a flag that they're telling people. Just to say, you're my best, my best. I love you the most. You start to teach your children.
You're my husband or wife.
That one is a no. You get the idea. So you can teach your children. Oh, a neighbor sees them and say, oh, come inside. Come and watch this show with me. Oh, I cooked rice. Do you want to eat? They say no thanks. Because you've taught them that when people start to show you kindness and try to isolate you, they want you to come alone with them, that they can touch your private area and it could hurt you and it could harm you. You get the idea? Then you start to set small rules around playing and tell them, oh, when you're playing at home, no playing in a room where the door is closed. Peekaboo has to be in the open. And then you start to teach them when other people are in the house, you knock before you enter. You don't stay in a room with everybody and keep the door closed. When you enter a room where there's grandma, grandpa, anybody, make sure you leave the door ajar. So anybody passing can be there. Then you start to tell caregivers when visitors come, if you have a guest in the house and the guest suddenly picks you and says, go and buy me something, grab my child and go with my child. Because you've taught the child to not be isolated. So that's 3 to 5 year old window. 6 to 8 is a build up on 3 to 5. However, when children get to the age of 6, they start to make connections about relationships. If you have a 6 to 8 year old, chances are that you've noticed a change. If your husband calls you, before they used to say, Mommy, Daddy is calling you. But after a while, when they hit that 6 to 8 bracket, they start to say, Mommy, your husband is calling you. Right? So when they start to say your husband, that means they're trying to make sense of relationships. They are the ones that are most likely to do mommy and daddy play, that they are married to somebody. They're the ones that are most likely to be caught behind the couch, trying to touch each other inappropriately. So when they hit age 6 to 8, the question I'm asking is, what are they watching at home? You are putting boundaries like they can't go through an adult's phone. not to play game, because they can stumble on something inappropriate. The show on the TV has to be appropriate. They're not bumping into you, either having intercourse with your spouse, because they are making connections and they are copycats. So what they see, they'll try to do at school. Many schools are not equipped to manage when children come in with these behaviors. So if a child is caught doing something sexual in nature, that child will be shamed, that child will be labeled, and that could be a traumatic experience, a long-term traumatic experience for the child. Because most times, schools don't know how to manage it. So sex education for 6 to 8-year-old has to come through this nature. Boundaries. Don't touch people's phones. You can't watch any show that mommy and daddy have not approved of it. You need to tell them what marriage is, and that's not intercourse. Marriage is when a man sees a woman that he loves and honors, and God okays it, and he goes to her family, he does a ceremony and marries her. When you tell them that, it makes them know that the girl sitting beside them in class is not their wife, seeing that they've not gone to marry her. And not be her husband, seeing that we've not yet gone to pay dowry. So they can't start imagining that just by saying she's my wife. Do you get it? Then you start to also tell them that they don't do body talk with their classmates, neither should they do body talk with other people outside of their parents. What is body talk? You know how, because they're curious, they hear something in school,
they come or back
at home, they take it to school. They hear it first at home, they take it to school. Another child, they start to swap information, which can get complicated. So you tell your child, nobody talk in school. If a classmate comes to talk and start talking about private body area, tell them to go and talk to your teacher about it. That's number one. Number two, you don't ask any adults questions about the body. You talk to only your parents. So let's say, this one happened to me. We had a relative coming for like a Christmas holiday, and one of my daughters just went to her. This was like 3-4 years ago. Once I asked her that, why do some women have breasts and others don't? And she opened the curriculum, So they're saying, by the time your breast is you now see your period. She was saying it to a child that was about 8, and it was inappropriate. And so because most society does not know what is appropriate or what is not appropriate. So when they're 6 to 8, you tell them, you don't ask anybody body questions. You come to me. Also, you don't keep body secrets. So at 6 to 8, someone could touch them, and this happens for 3 to 5 as well. Someone could touch them and say, because you're my favorite, give them. So you say, don't tell anybody. I always tell the children to tell the person, yes, they won't tell anybody. They should accept. But as soon as they start the house, they should know that we don't keep body secret, because anyone touching your body inappropriately wants to harm you. So when you tell mom and you tell daddy, they won't be able to do that. So that's for 6 to 8. By the time they get to 9 to 11, they are in the phase of puberty. So they got to know that what is happening to their body. And it has to be the full 9 yards. It means you're going to talk about sex as intercourse. You can't tell a 9-year-old that babies came from heaven. The reason is that when they start going through puberty, that rule you gave to 6 to 8 that you don't do body talk is harder at 9 to not discuss with peers. This one started growing hair. So it's normally a situation where they will have a mix mash of wrong information. The school curriculum around that age also has sex education as reproductive system in the curriculum.
Science. Yes.
That means that your child should know it before the teacher teaches it. Because the way the teacher teaches it, he strikes the match of curiosity in a way. Children start to giggle, start to laugh, start to, did you know that some children think that sex and rape is the same thing at that age? Because they're not getting their information from the right sources. So by the time your child is 9 to 11, they should know that their body is changing, and the changes is going to cause changes in their emotions, changes in their physical body, and changes in emotion 2 ways. Changes in emotion will start making them emotionally attracted to the opposite sex. If you're a parent listening to this podcast and you've been telling your children that having a crush is a sin, now what for you? Did you not have a crush? So having a crush is not a sin. They don't even have control of who they have a crush on. Our responsibility at that to teach them what the crush is. For instance, tell them, Your brain is making connections because one day, so for one, I teach them that puberty means your body is preparing for adulthood. So your body is starting to make adjustment of all the things that are in the adult's body in yours. But you're on a journey. You're on a journey. It's getting started. And one of the journeys, because man and woman are designed to be married, when those changes start happening, you start feeling like, I like to describe them like electrical current. So your brain starts to make connections with the opposite sex. You like them for a few days, then you disconnect. Like a few days, disconnect. I say because it's not likely to last, don't act on it. Don't act on it. Don't write him a letter. Don't tell him you like him. I say because also, at that point, you're vulnerable. You know how you teach children that you will be weak. I'm not going to tell you be strong. You will be weak. So if he tells you kiss me, you will do it. If he tells you meet me at the back, you will go. Even though you've heard in Sunday school is wrong, you've heard everywhere. But because you acted on it, you told him, he now knows. So when you see him, you feel stupid. You will not be able to control your emotions. So the best thing, don't tell him. So we talk about the emotional changes that are related to crush. Then I talk about the physical changes. And then I tell them that puberty is your body preparing to have a baby. And the system kicked in. And so when a woman has intercourse, a process that God designed for humanity to replicate itself, I tell them that God is a system person, that God will not be able to be making human beings every single day, that he may not be able to answer our prayers. So he created a system for the babies to be born. But that he also has an atmosphere within which God considers safe for children to be born. And that atmosphere is marriage. And so they need to wait and be married to have children. However, there's already a system in place that should you try to have sex, you will get pregnant. And I tell them explicitly that God designed a system where there is a sperm in a man and there's an egg in a woman. And when the man has sexual intercourse, a process where a man puts his penis in a woman's vagina, that the sperm travels from his testicles into her body and the baby starts to form. There's a rule though. When I'm describing sex in my sex education classes, I don't describe it as a pleasurable experience. I make it all mechanical. I make it like a man called his wife, say, "Hi, baby, we need to have a baby." He said, "Okay, I'll be back at 4. We'll try so that I can move the sperm from my testicles to your body." You know, when we make it mechanical like that, they get the gist without being excited about the pleasure. Again, they're managing the process. And so then we also expose them to the consequences. Like on Saturday, I had a class with a group of girls, and I was telling them what it means to bring another human being into the world. And trust me, when well done, the child can know that I don't want this route. So by the time the child is now 12 to 14, I want you to know that by the time they are 12 to 14, they now understand that there's pleasure associated with sex. And so at that phase, many of the conversations between their peers is how to dodge consequences. You know how they say, you can take a pill, you won't get pregnant. If he enters you and comes out before he ejaculates, you won't get pregnant. So at that point, 12 to 14, we are helping them debunk myths. They say, this myth is not true. This myth is not true. This myth is not true. That myth is not true. We're using science. We're using the word of God. And we know the things we're using the word of God to debunk. We know the things we're using science to debunk. And we are not mixing up the two. For instance, if your child starts to tell you that once somebody feels an urge, they have to ejaculate, if not, their brain will scatter. That kind of talk, you will show them in design where nobody's brain scatters. And you also show them in the word where the Bible says that sin cannot have dominion over you. And so if you're a Christian and you're talking to your children about the tripartite nature of man, you're telling them at each point you feed your spirit so that on the days you need to make a decision, your spirit is the boss. And so they don't understand that even working with God helps them preserve themselves. But by the time your children are 15, you leave sex as a concept and you start to talk to them about the kind of future that they want. What's the reality you want in your future? At the age of 15, you're talking about, if you're talking to a son, you're going to ask him, what kind of home do you want to have? What kind of father do you want to be? You're in the phase where you're going to start making decisions that lead you either there or away from it.
Wow.
Because at 15, they start thinking about their future in that sense. Because at 15, they're making university decisions, career decisions. And so it's all connected to where they're going in life. So you get the idea. And so at that point, you're helping them deal with that. And then you're also dealing with meat that they're dealing with. So between 12, 14, and 15, when they start hearing about abortions, you start telling them that, let me tell you, like in Nigeria, 5,500 girls, teenage girls, die trying to have abortions every year. And so in my class, I used to ask the girls, I said, how many boys die trying to have abortions? And they say none. I said, so when we hear 500 teens die trying to have abortions, that is all girls. Her life is over. And no girl knows that she's the one that is going to die. So your life is worth more than taking that kind of risk. And so by the time they're 15, we start to do vision boarding for them, start helping them do accountability circles, and then you bring in a bit of psychology. So my framework says that young people shouldn't date until they're about 21.
Yeah.
Because just because they can vote in an election, drive a car, does not mean that they're ready to have a relationship. Science even says that their puberty brain is still developing all the way till 21. 22. You get the idea? So that means that you can't base a solid life decision around that 18 to 21 window. So 18 to 21 window is go and find yourself. Intern somewhere, learn a skill, start university, do something, be distracted, get on LinkedIn, follow industry leaders that you would like to learn more about, get busy. Then when you're 21, you now know what you want to do with your life. You now know the kind of partner you want, you now know the qualities. And then when you start looking at people, you're looking them from a more logical sense than emotional. So that's in a nutshell.
Coach Irene, in fact, we have woken up, those of us that were sleeping. This is a wake-up call, and it's worth listening to over and over and over again. So before you go, please, could you share your social media handles and how people can reach you? I know you run the coaching session for girls. Can you talk more about your work and also a little about your school? I know you are also running a school too. Let's know a little about what you do.
Okay, so let me start with my social media handles. I'm going to share the social media handles for the girls program, then talk about the girls, and I go to the school. So for the girls, my sex education work, I focus primarily on girls because that's what I've been instructed to do. That's apart from the fact that I'm raising girls. So my handle on Instagram is raisinggirls.ng. Raisinggirls.ng. Yes, and so on my platform Working with Girls, I have some resources. First, I have a set of books called the Body Smart Girl Bundle. It has books for parents and it has books for girls of different ages. And especially for fathers, it has a pack of flashcards that can help fathers play small game, with girls while talking about sex. Remember, sex is not intercourse. Sex education is not intercourse. It's not that kind of thing. So we have it for different age groups. The way I grouped the conversation tonight, we have resources for different ages like that. For 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 11, 12 to 14, 15 plus. And then every holiday, I do a boot camp called the Body Smart Girl Boot Camp. And we have girls from all over the world coming and we talk about different things. Again, in that same age grouping, making it really age appropriate. And then we also have the Body Smart Girl Journal, where we are helping get girls to read the Bible every single day because we need them to feed their spirit to be the boss. Because there's no there's no Bible-based sex education when the spirit is not the boss. So we're trying to get more girls reading the Bible, learning more about God, just cultivating a relationship with God. And then we are working out a small mentoring program that we're going to likely start in a few months for girls, where we meet girls every month, because I'm seeing that when I meet them once during the holiday, you feel like
it's not enough.
It's not enough. So, but we want to keep it a really more intimate circle. and just be able to manage it to be effective. So that's what we do on Raising Girls. So if you come to raising-girls.ng on Instagram, you find me there. However, I'm also an educator. I've been an educator for the last 14 years. But 3 years, my husband and I stepped out in faith, following an instruction God gave us, into a community in Kuje. Kuje is one of the local governments in the Federal Capital Territory. And so we got into a community in Kuje and set up a full secondary school for children from low-income families. They pay 100 naira a day. So for 100 naira a day, they get books, they get uniform, the girls get sanitary pads, they get lunch. I said books, uniform, lunch, and the girls get monthly sanitary pads. And we're really giving them quality action learning education. We're trying to give them the kind of education that equips them to break out of poverty. So they're building robots, they're thinking, they're creating. But obviously, 100 naira a day doesn't cut it. And some families can't even pay 100 naira a day. So and 100 naira a day, 6,000 naira a term. So obviously, if you're giving books, uniform, lunch, sanitary pads, it can be on 6,000. So yes, it cost us 66,000 naira a term to keep one child in school. So normally what happens is we come on social media and talk to people about the school and ask people to co-sponsor a child. And we make it so easy. You don't need to pick a child fully to sponsor them. You can sponsor a child by making a 2,000 naira donation a month. Now, if 10 people donate 2,000 naira a month, they actually help us with the child in school. So you can be just doing 2,000 naira, meanwhile you're making such a big difference. And so to learn more about how you can support our work on NOSC, all you need to do is visit nosceducation.org. I'll spell the NOSC and calm down, nosceducation.org. And the spelling is KNOSK. KNOSK. So nosceducation.org. So if you get on Instagram as well, our handle on Instagram is NOSC Education. So yes, that's it on my end.
Wow. Coach Irene is doing an awesome job. I'm really inspired by that 100 naira per day school. And I know that it's really subsidized because
it is.
We all know what education is, quality education. And to me, I see it as a seed that her family is sowing, and we'll get to know more about you through your social media handles. And I'm sure many of us will want to partner with you or do something. Okay.
So I wanted to say something. Yes, I wanted to say a special thank you to Nigerians. We've run the school for 3 years now. We started with 30 children. And when we started the first year, we had only one child on sponsorship. And that child was being sponsored by an association of women who were keeping her in school. She had been out of school for 2 years. Her mother was living from an uncompleted building. Her father had passed, and relatives had said as soon as she turned 14, she'd be given out in marriage. So one association of women sponsored one child in the school out of 30 children. By the second year, we had 5 girls on sponsorship. 5 children on sponsorship. Of those 5 children that were on sponsorship, 3 were being sponsored by an embassy, and the other 2 were being sponsored by that association. 2, as talking to you, it's been our 3rd year. We have about 35 children out of 82 on sponsorship, and they're being primarily sponsored by Nigerians, organizations in Nigeria. So I want to say a big thank you to Nigerians because they're the reason why our doors are still open. And so it's just a way of saying that we've seen people be kind to us. Sacrificing is because Nigerians listen to the plight of other Nigerians and reach out to us. So as I speak now, we have about 35 children on sponsorship fully, and we have another 30 on partial sponsorship. We have private schools sponsoring children, supporting our teachers' salary, other private schools in Nigeria. And so I just want to say that Nigerians are good people. Nigerians are great people.
Wow. So we still have good Nigerians that have a kind heart. And I'm sure after listening to this podcast, I'm sure you get a lot of more sponsorship, and people to help. Thank you so much. So before you go, I want you to just in summary, what are 3 practical ways that parents can make sure that they are not sleeping on duty concerning sex education? Three practical ways.
So number one, create a home that makes it impossible for abuse to happen. How do I know? Create a safe environment for your children to converse with you. Create a safe environment for your children to converse, to talk with you. Number two, create a safe environment in terms of content. You have to be alert at what kind of content comes into your home, whether it's through the television, through the media, through the people living in your home. So starting with, say, people living in your home, if you're providing sex education to your children, you have to provide sex education to other people living in your home, because they are a direct influence on whatever sexual values your children pick. And then thirdly, be present. Be present to notice changes, to notice change in body language, changes in friendship, patterns of behavior. Be present. And even when you make mistakes, apologize. Apologize so that your children can feel comfortable to share their burdens with you. And try to have a judgment-free space. Even if you find your child did something wrong, judgment-free space allows you get to know why they did it, the foundation for which that wrongdoing stood, so that you can correct whatever it is from the root. So safe enough for them to speak up, safe enough to manage the kind of content that comes in, alert to see all the changes that are taking place in your home.
Wow. That's why this is At Home with Ifeno. She said the first one was create that atmosphere, create that home, where the children can be free to express themselves to you. And if you have drivers, maids, relatives, whoever is in your family, in your home, living with you, you also need to educate them, not just your children, because those children are also going to meet the house helps, the drivers, and whoever is in your home. And then she has told us we should wake up. We should not sleep on duty. We should be present. Our jobs, our businesses, yes, we are looking for money and whatever. We should be present. We should be ready to give our children that listening ear. We should not be judgmental. Many of us know how maybe our young stage of our lives were, so we should not make it hard on the children so that we don't lose them. Thank you so much, Coach Irene. We are so grateful for squeezing out your very precious time, and God bless you.
God bless you too. It's been such an honor. Have a beautiful evening.
And you too. Thank you. Thanks for joining us this week on At Home with Ifeno. Check us out on Instagram at Ifeno17. As always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. See you next in 2 weeks' time.